Konnichiwa, minasan. Good afternoon, everyone. Super Kami Guru Alucard des. Yes, it's Super Kami Guru Alucard, and we are here for our finale of live Clow card readings. I guess the popularity of the series has died off a bit since some of the earlier times, so this will be our final episode. But if you are interested in hearing more content from me, the good news is there will be a live album discussions tomorrow at 1 p.m. where I will give the backstory and give you a little bit of details regarding the track listing for my newest release, SKGA Goes to Japan, which I think turned out wonderful because of the story it tells, as well as all the different characters that play a part throughout it. So, as usual, if anybody tunes in and would like a reading, especially because this is the final time, um, just comment gender, zodiac sign, and if you would like career, romance, or general future for your fortune being told. And of course, after all that is laid out too with the album discussion, there will be a new album dropping November 25th entitled Dark Cloud Volume 1, and December 1st A Point to Prove will drop. So lots of good things on the horizon to come with music. And of course, because I've been reading many Stephen King books lately, I've been on sort of a journey. Once I complete all the ones I have, in the future, I will do a ranking and sort of give my thoughts on all of them and do kind of like a review. So that will come in the future as well. As for the whole dueling league, I've got 8 deck boxes so far. So if I get the other 8 next month, I'll be able to divide the decks and hopefully be able to have the dueling club prepared and ready once we find members as soon as closer near the end of November. So hopefully that all goes well. And yeah, we'll start with since I said it, I guess we'll go in that order. We'll go career, romance, then general future. So, oh, great Clow cards of Kuroriro, using the power of the sun, the moon, and the stars, revealed to me a message regarding my future possibilities of my career. Release. The snow, flower, freeze, sword, and the bubbles. Okay, we'll put these there. So as you could see, first we got the snow, then the flower, the freeze, the snow, well, the sword, sorry. We actually did get the snow as well, but that was the sword there. And then the bubbles. So it's very interesting because we have the snow and the freeze simultaneously, both sort of icy elements. And I believe that that signifies that things are kind of cold right now. They're slow, they're frozen, they're still. But that could just be the way the season of my career is supposed to be for the time being. However, we do get the flower card in the middle of it, which says that there might actually be some good opportunities about to blossom and bloom in the future to come, which is a good sign. The sword indicates fighting for what I want, finding my own inner strength, and using my strengths as a weapon, not only to defend myself, but to really take me through any sort of opposition I might have to where I want to go. And last, we have the bubbles card, which indicates things might be starting to bubble up in the future, especially once the snow and the freeze or the ice thaws out, hopefully. So that's pretty good. That definitely is pretty accurate to the clarity of how things are, and it makes sense that they hopefully will progress in that direction. So next we will do romance and then general future. O great Clow cards of Kurorito, using the power of the sun, the moon, and the stars, revealed to me a message regarding my future romantic endeavors and the possibilities to come regarding it. Release. The illusion, the power, the mist, the cloud, and the sand. That doesn't sound very good, probably to some people who have watched before, but there is a message in that, and it actually does seem to be pretty accurate for the moment. Recently, I had undergone an illusion with the Natsuki person who probably wasn't even real, and basically they tried to get guilt trip me and even got a friend to say that they had killed themselves, all because I wanted a video call. But as my Buddhist mentor James and Haruna said, probably not a real person for them to do that. It was a perfectly reasonable request, and obviously they were looking out for me, which is why they thought that if the person was real, they should humor me with the video call to prove their identity to be true. So, yeah, the illusion was dispelled. As far as like what's to come, that really is a mystery, and there's an illusion of what I want, where things will go, things of that nature. There was also the Nicole woman who turned out to be a total bitch who ghosted me and ignored me. And she literally said all this overtly sexual shit when she wanted to get with me, but she thought I was dating somebody. And then as soon as she thought I was single again, she just dropped off the face of the earth, couldn't be bothered to say nothing to her. So, and I had actually made her a song, and she just completely ignored the fact that it was mastered, didn't even want to hear it or care that it would be released on a future album. So, just because of that, because I really hate when people fucking do that, I'm going to make another song about this bitch, and I'm going to tear her a whole new fucking asshole because you want to be a cunt like that. Fuck you. You don't get a song glorifying you and then treat me like shit and have that be the final word or statement about you laid down in the history of Super Kami Guru Alucard. Fuck no. You're getting a song that's going to tear you apart for being the fucking ghosting bitch that only wants men that are taken, but when they're single, you want to treat them like shit. That's the kind of person you are. So I'm going to make a song about that kind of person to fucking put you in your place. And that'll show her. Whether she hears it or not, I don't give a fuck. Good way to blow off some steam. You know, being an artist has its benefit in that sense. You get to actually talk about shit, get it off your chest, make a song, and you feel pumped and powered up. And then you kind of let it go after, and you feel a little bit better. So the illusion is very accurate with all the so-called possibilities that turned out to be false lately. Next, we have the power card, which it kind of indicates what I was just talking about with the sense of there being a power in my music to dispel the illusions, and not only that, but empower myself using my music to dispel the illusions, to clarify how things really are. With romance, of course, the power could also indicate using these songs in the best way possible, which it makes sense because I've often made songs for Hitomi Shimatani. Probably I've made more songs about her than any other person in the world. I love her, as you can tell from all the memorabilia and the things I have in my room, all the things I've talked about. So yeah, just keep making songs for Hitomi. If I don't have anybody to give love to and make a song for them, I'll just keep giving it to Hitomi, because Hitomi in a way deserves it more than most women. I mean, especially the way she thanked me live at her concert and everything, the way when she has actually talked to me through messages and the VIP Fanicon chat. They've always been nice and sweet and positive. She even gave me a heart and kissy lips before. So, that's good. The Mist, our next card, indicates that things are a bit hazy. Things are dissolving away, which recently they have been. And then next we have the Cloud card, which means things are going to start to flow and be different. They're going to rise above where they are currently and reach new heights, but they're going to be light, erudite, and po- possibly very promising, which is good. And then next we have the sand, which indicates that it may be a difficult journey ahead, but to stay the course, don't give up on the dreams, and keep pursuing them. So, which is very good. Next, we will do general future for our final reading. And then, of course, we will get into the discussion part of the show, which I will try to talk about as in depth as possible, especially because we still got 20 minutes and there is a lot of upcoming things that are coming about. Plus, I'll also, give a little bit of updates more about the Dueling Club, a little more information about that. And also, on my Stephen King journey, my thoughts on all the different books I've read, which ones I've read so far, and how the order is going to go in the future of reading them till I'm ready to do my review and ranking, which seems to be a popular thing on YouTube. Hopefully, it will draw more views to this channel. Get people checking out the videos, and then get them. Hopefully, he does music too. Let's hear some of it, right? So hopefully build the fan base, grow it a little bit. You know what I'm saying? That would be delightful and being optimistic at the moment, hopefully helpful. So, okay, for general future, as usual, we will lay 5 cards out and then we will do 5 face down, which we will flip for further clarity. All right. Oh, great Clow cards of Kuroriro, using the power of the sun, the moon, and the stars, reveal to me guidance for my general future to come with the first 5 cards, and for any clarity that I may need, please answer the questions with the second 5. Release. The shield, the dash, the light, the fiery, and the fly. We will put 5 other cards face down, and we will flip them for answers after we review what we got. Okay, so the first cards that we drew and placed down were the shield, which indicates keeping my guard up. That could apply to many things. That could be romantic nature. That could be emotionally, mentally, career-wise. That could apply to anything. But this is really a time when I need to stay on my guard and be cautious. That's what it's telling me, to protect myself, because there might be some things that aren't so good coming my way. The dash means when good opportunities come, I really got to jump at them as quick as possible and run towards them, dash to them, because you know the old saying, if you snooze, you lose, right? So, or in Buddhist terms, to be idle is a short road to death. So, definitely dash towards any good, promising possibilities when they emerge. Next, we have the light card, which indicates things will start to be brighter, things will start to shine in the nearby future to come. Then we have the fiery card, which means that passion will reignite. It will be hot. It'll be fiery. I'll really feel charged and motivated to move forward, which is good because I've kind of been going through a dry spell emotionally and even creatively. I just haven't felt motivated to do it, which, based on reading this article about the effects of a dry spell, it tends to hinder your cognitive abilities, which is why I haven't really felt like working or creating much lately. But hopefully this card is saying that flame will be lit again and I'll be going full steam ahead moving forward. The fly card indicates travel, rising to new heights, which makes sense, especially because I am planning to go back to Japan next year and I'm really looking forward to that. So those answers are actually pretty cut and dry, but for any more of the message which might be in store of these cards, we will flip the next 5 now, starting with the earthy, the loop, the float, the jump, and the race, which is very interesting that we had the jump, because I said jump on the possibilities as soon as it comes, which is clarifying what I thought that card was trying to tell me when I drew it. That confirms it. The float also means rising to new heights, new elevations, which ties into the fly wonderfully. The earthy means being grounded, finding my own inner strength. The loop means that things are starting to come around. That they've been a certain way for a while, but they're going to head back. So if things have been off balance and not so good, which they haven't particularly been in a while, hence why it's been so long for me to do another episode of this, but they will start to come back around and be on more the positive side of the scale, which is good. And then, of course, we have the erase card, which basically is trying to tell me to let go of the bad lately, forget it, leave it in the past, and move forward. So, show you the earthy, the loop, the float, the jump, and the erase. So that is all for our Clow card readings today. Of course, if anybody does chime in before we end this broadcast today and you would like your fortune told, as always, just say gender, zodiac sign, and if you would like career, romance, or general future, and I'll be sure to give you a fortune telling before the end of this. Of course, if anybody does tune in and would like their fortune told at a later date, there is prizes and bonuses which you could check in the description that you would possibly qualify for if you follow what the description says, and then you could qualify for tons of fortune tellings. And of course, if you do catch this later, I might come back for another season in the future, but not for a while. But please, if you do want your fortune told, leave it in the comments. It would kind of be a motivating factor for me to do the show again. And if I do come back, which I'm probably sure I will in the future, just maybe not for a while, take a little hiatus. But when I come back, I'll be sure to check those comments. If people request a fortune telling, I will do yours in the next episode to come. In the future, whenever it does come, I'm not making any promises. That's why I decided I had to at least finish off the season, but I definitely would like to take a nice long break after from doing this. Just because it's very strenuous. I got a lot going on. I'm playing this game called Hero Wars. I'm trying to get through Dark Cloud 2. I'm reading all these Stephen King books, not to mention studying Japanese, writing some of my own books, and just got a lot on the ball right now that I think that's why I was tired out and not feeling so well enough to do this last week. But I didn't want to procrastinate or delay it any longer. So here we are. But yeah, as I said, if you comment on these videos after the broadcast and I see them, I will be sure to tell your fortune in the future when I come back to do the show again. Which I guarantee I will. I just won't make a promise of when. So, getting to the books that I have been reading, that'll be the first thing we discuss. So, I have read 9 Stephen King books so far, and I'm working on number 10, which is Carrie. So far, very good. I've read 100 pages of it. I've heard this isn't really a lot of people's favorite, which is kind of interesting because this was Stephen King's first published book, the one that kind of launched his career. And the movie was very successful and popular. And I mean, it was a bestseller. So it's not really that it was a failed book or not that good. But a lot of people, after reading like most of his work, didn't really hold this up as one of their favorites. And oddly enough, I could kind of understand why. As a guy reading it so far, I might by the end of the book have a different opinion on it. But as a guy, there were certain things that were a little tricky for me to relate. And I even heard women say this about it. So maybe it's not even just a guy thing. But it's not to say that I don't like the book and that I don't enjoy it. To be honest, I actually liked the book better than I expected to from the reviews I had heard on YouTube from other people about it. Because what I think I like is you really feel for the main character, Carrie, and what she's going through. It's a lot of pain. And even as a guy, there's times when people get bullied. There was times even when I wasn't very popular. I'll put it this way. I was popular in high school a lot more because I was a rapper by this point than I was in elementary school. And I was not really so popular in elementary school. There were bullies, there were mean kids, things like that. So I could relate to it. And there were even some of the popular kids who were kind of snobby and not so good to me in high school. So in that sense, I could relate. And you really do feel for the character. Plus, it's really interesting so far, like hearing how the story is like structured, because in between the main story there's all these like book quotes or newspaper articles, like basically adding to the story, which is very cool. I think I actually like that he did that, because he's done that in several other books like Salem's Lot, which I will get to. I actually, that might be my favorite book so far. We'll see if another one tops it, or if more time passes on I decide it's not quite my favorite, but so far that might be my favorite. But I loved how he did that in Salem's Lot. I also loved how he's done that in a lot of other books, but I think that was something that was, like, he started with Carrie being his first book, and people like that because it adds a different structure to it. It's actually something you see a lot of in Dracula as well, which was a book that influenced Salem's Lot, oddly enough. But so far, very good. 100 pages in, 145 to get through. Maybe today, maybe not today, but by tomorrow, I should be able to finish it. I was actually hoping to read another 45 to 50 pages today, because then tomorrow that will only leave me like 100 to finish up with. So all right, so going in order of the ones I have read, and keep in mind I had read two of these before already, years ago, one in high school and one after my brief semester in college. But I reread them because I wanted the story to be fresh in my mind, so I could really make an accurate depiction of which ones I really like better. That way the story was fresh. Plus, when I reread The Shining, which is one of them, the other was Pet Cemetery. I reread The Shining before I did Doctor Sleep, because I wanted the story to be fresh in my mind before tackling Doctor Sleep, so that I could really compare it as a sequel, how well the continuity or continuity followed the story. So this year, starting in September, this is when I finished the first one, which was Desperation. I really loved, I'll put it this way, Desperation, still, even after all the ones I read, which isn't always in a lot of other people's reviews the most popular one. But I really enjoyed this book. I really loved the made-for-TV movie. And I would honestly say that even by the end of my ranking, this might still be in the top 5. Just because, I don't know, I really loved all the characters. I really liked the story. I liked how the made-for-TV movie was very close to the book. The differences, though, I actually thought made it even better, like in the book. Like when I had seen the movie, I liked the movie, which is maybe what want to read it. The things that were in the book, that were in the miniseries, were perfectly orchestrated in the movie. But the things that were different, I actually made me like the book even more. So it didn't hurt it, it didn't take anything away from it. It added to the story, what they left out. And at the same time, I could kind of understand why they changed certain things or left certain things out of the movie to make it a movie in a 2-hour runtime. But the movie, I would actually say, is one of the better Stephen King adaptations. So it was Desperation first. And then, let's see, what was the second one I read? Okay, the second one was Salem's Lot, which honestly might be my favorite. I really love this one. I was heartbroken when spoiler alert ahead, when Susan actually was killed, because I really loved the romance she had with Ben Mayer's character. I thought that was just great. And like the way the town had divulged into madness, I really had grown to love all the different characters, each for their own reasons, the good and the bad. And this really, I'll put it this way, in my opinion, this book really shows what makes Stephen King such a great writer. It shows all his strengths in Salem's Lot. And I really do think that the reason a lot of people put this up there as like one of his best, one of their favorites, even though it's only his second book, is because he really elevated his writing from Carrie to this one. Like I could see a huge leap and bounds difference reading Carrie now already. From Carrie to this, he had really gotten to be a much better writer by the time he started doing this. Not that he wasn't good, but he really channeled all his strengths into this book. And it's like he sharpened his skills as a writer, which is why this might be my favorite. It's definitely going to be in the top 5. I can already tell by the end of my review, it's going to be up there, but it's really great. But to be fair, there hasn't been a book out of all these that I haven't liked so far. So just keep that in mind too. I'm not saying that the other books weren't good or anything. Okay, so after Salem's Lot, let's see, what was the next one I read? The last 3 were Pet Cemetery, The Shining, and Doctor Sleep. Before that, it was Nightmares and Dreamscapes. Then it was The Dark Half, The Green Mile. Okay, yeah. So next up was actually Different Seasons. Now that I'm remembering it right, Different Seasons was really good. I loved all 4 stories in this. The Breathing Method was by far my favorite, just because I didn't know what to expect. There's no movie adaptation of it, and like it was such a good story for 60 pages. Like it hit you as hard as a full-blown novel in only 60 pages because the story was just that deep and fascinating. It was beautiful, it was scary, it was suspenseful, it was mysterious. Like it had all these elements of charm that made it such a great story. And then, of course, the 3 other stories in it, there is Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption, which I will say is one of the few times where the movie was actually better than the story. I will not say that the story was bad, but that the movie actually added and explained some things that weren't really mentioned in the story. It didn't take anything away from the story, but it actually improved on the structure. Of course, the story itself was great. I read it in one day, and it was over 100 pages long, but I really loved it. I just couldn't put it down. And of course, as I was reading it, in my head, it's like I was hearing Morgan Freeman narrate it, which I thought was really funny. The second story, Apt Pupil, that was the darkest, most scariest, fucked up story I've ever read. I loved it, which is why, like, I'll put it this way. This book would definitely be a top 10 because of the surprise of Apt Pupil. I was really disappointed with the movie adaptation. Not that Ian McKellen didn't do a good job, and even David Schwimmer did a good job, and the kid too who played Todd. But it just didn't capture the essence of the story. The story was so dark that the movie almost tried to be too family friendly, and it took away the shock value of the story. Like when I read the story, I had to like read to a certain point where it settled and subsided from its tension because I knew I wouldn't be able to sleep. And then I finished it the next day, and I was horrified when I got to the ending. But great story. Second favorite in it. Not that the other 2 stories weren't good either, because like I said, Shawshank was great. And then The Body, which the movie Stand By Me is based on, was also fantastic. I actually will say I like the movie of that better too, but the story, oh, okay, you know what? A better way of saying it is I think the movie was just as good as the story. In some ways, I actually think the story was darker, so they both had their own unique charm that sets them apart, but both very good. So that was the next one I read. And then, of course, I did The Green Mile after that. Yeah, I did The Green Mile, which I loved. I thought it was much darker than the movie. The movie is fantastic, and it really is another one of the better Stephen King adaptations of it. But the book at the same time was also really good and entertaining. And there were things they added to the movie that weren't in the book that worked well with it. And there were some dark things they left out of the movie that reading the book added a whole new excitement and a twist to it that I didn't expect, that I thought was really great. So I love The Green Mile. That's definitely like a fantastic book. And then I did The Dark Half, which with this one I know it's a hit or miss. People either really love it or they don't like it. See, me personally, I loved it. I thought it was actually such a great story, and I finished it in like 5 days because it is a decently long book. In the beginning, it kind of seemed a bit slow for me, but then once it picked up and like it really took off like a rocket, it was hard to put it down because it was just such a crazy story. I loved a lot of the characters. I loved, like, as a villain, George Stark was, he was fucked up, but he was terrifying. He was scary as hell. I really liked George Stark as a villain. Scared the hell out of me. I liked Thad the least, I will say, which is surprising because he was the main good character, but I don't know. He kind of seemed like a bit of a pushover, and he was kind of bland and boring at some points. But his wife, I liked. I liked the twins. I thought they were cute and really cool. And I liked Sheriff Pangborn, who appears in another novel I'm going to read later, Needful Things. I really loved his character. So, yeah, this was overall a really good book. I really loved The Dark Half. I actually would love to see the movie someday because I haven't, but I hope that the movie lives up to the book. But considering George A. Romero is directing it, I think it's got a good shot. But either way, fantastic book. Not everybody likes it. Me personally, I was one of the people that actually really loved it. I might even put it in my top 10 because the whole writing pseudonym and Stephen King tying it into the whole Richard Bachman thing that he did, I really loved that about the book. It was like he brought that part of himself alive in the book, and you could feel that, and it was just a great addition. And then next, Nightmares and Dreamscapes, a collection of short stories, which I really loved, and I wanted to read because I love the movie with Miguel Ferrer, The Night Flyer. As for the other books, there were a lot of stories in here that were really good. I love them. Some of them were kind of Like, I'll put it this way. It Grows on You was probably my least favorite story. But I mean, Suffer the Little Children was terrifying. The end of this whole mess was weird. Dolan's Cadillac was really good. Chattery Teeth, Popsy, which was almost like in the same world as The Night Flyer. You know they got a hell of a band. Home Delivery, Rainy Season. That made me terrified of toads. My Pretty Pony was a really beautiful story because it wasn't scary or dark. It just had a real good lesson to it. The 10 o'clock people, Crouch End was wild. The Home on Maple Street was interesting. The Fifth Quarter, that definitely seemed like a Bachman story. The Doctor's Case, which was like a take on Watson solving a case in the Sherlock Holmes world, was really good. I definitely would say, now that I'm thinking about it, what was my favorite story? I would actually say Umney's Last Case. And even the nonfiction story, which was in the New York Times that Stephen King wrote about his son's baseball team, was beautifully written. And I could get why some people wouldn't like it if you don't like baseball. I'm not the biggest baseball fan, but I enjoy the game. It's kind of interesting. I really liked all the things about it I learned when I was in Japan. And I actually thought it was really beautifully written. For a real story, too. It was a hell of a good story, and Stephen King wrote it very well. But definitely Umney's Last Case, where the writer becomes the character you imagine because he can't stand his own life anymore. Just, oh my God, that story. Like, at first, I was thinking it was something completely different. And then when it revealed what the story really was all about, I was like shocked. I was just like, whoa. So great story. And overall, I actually could say I enjoyed all the stories a little bit. Probably It Grows on You least, but I do like that it's kind of like an epilogue to Needful Things. And I might understand and like that story more after I read Needful Things. So that was that. And then, of course, Pet Cemetery was next, which scared me more than the first time reading it. I could honestly say that. It scared me more, and it got harder and harder to get through. It took me 4 days. The first couple days, I was reading a lot of it. But near the end, it got harder and harder to read because you really felt for the horror the characters were experiencing. It was hard to read. It scared me more the second time because I was older and more mature, and I could really sympathize with the characters to a greater extent. And I'll put it this way, emotionally, it tired me out. I was haunted by it for hours after. In fact, I'll put it this way, if I had to read this book again, I wouldn't mind reading it to somebody else if somebody wanted me to read it to them, but reading it by myself, I don't know that I could do it. And I, not to say that the book is bad. No, it's fantastic. It might be one of his best stories. It's very powerful. It's great, but it's a hard journey to get through by yourself just because it really is emotionally tiresome. Like, it really drains you of your emotions because of all the emotions that run through you while you're reading it. But very good. I would actually say that would be definitely in the top 3, probably even still by the end of my journey, because I really love how powerful that book is. It's hard at times to read because of how emotionally tugging it is, but that's kind of what gives it its beauty and its power as a book. Then next, The Shining, which I really loved on reread, and I got through it in 3 days, like way faster than the first time I got it. It was kind of slow the first time I read it, but the second time I hauled through it. And the more I got into it, the more I realized how much better the book is than the Kubrick movie. In fact, it kind of made me not like the Kubrick movie as much as I used to after reading it, because I really feel like he stole a lot of the great qualities that make the characters in the book and kind of emotionally dumbed them down and made them a lot colder than they were in the book, which is part of what makes the book such a great, wonderful story. There were certain things I forgot that weren't in the movie and the miniseries as well, that like really shook me up when I had forgotten from reading it years ago, that I was like, oh my god, that's even more terrifying than any of the movies. And you know what makes me kind of sad too? They've never really portrayed Danny's character accurately in any of the movies, even the miniseries. He was either whiny and annoying, or he was just weird and too quiet. And Danny was kind of in the middle ground of that in the book. I found they either pushed it too far on one end of the spectrum or too far on the other, but they never really got Danny's character exactly as he was in the book. And I love Danny's character in the book. I will say that. Which is why the last book, Doctor Sleep, was so enjoyable. After reading The Shining, rereading it again, and then going right into it, it felt like a continuing story. And I really loved the reemergence of some characters like Jack, how it described Wendy had turned out, even Dick Halloran when he comes back for the beginning and a brief appearance later on in the book. I don't want to give too many spoilers away, but there will be. So if you've never read these, you could feel free to tune out. Well, I guess it'd be a little late to tell you now, but oh well. I still say read them. Even if I've given you spoilers, it won't hurt anything by reading it because the stories are that good. So far of the 9 books I read, I love them all. I'm, working on Carrie now. So far, I really like it. And then after that, I've got a whole bunch of others. I actually have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 more to go. So by the end of this, I'll have about 21 books read. But yeah, anyways, I actually have gone on longer than I expected to, so I think we will conclude the show here. But please stay tuned tomorrow at 1 p.m. where we will do a live album discussion and get into this backstory and sort of a description of the characters and all the different tracks that made up my newest released album, which you can check out in the playlist below in the description. Super Kami Guru Alucard Goes to Japan, which of course is SKG8 Goes to Japan to shorten it. But hopefully, if you haven't checked it out, you will check it out and you'll like it. And until next time, until we return for the live Clow card readings again someday, which I will not promise when it will be, but please comment. Let me know, if you want fortunes told and if you like the show. It would definitely motivate me to do this again in the future. But as I said, till next time, Super Kami Guru Alucard. Sayonara minasan. Domo arigatou gozaimasu. Matane and peace out, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the show.